As I said, my students were from all over the prefecture, so I was expecting to hear about people injured, but I personally don't know anybody who was injured or lost. I know one of my teachers lost her house, but her family are all okay. I know people who died, but I was quite lucky. I don't know anybody myself, so I'm quite thankful about that. Well, I was at one of my schools when the earthquake happened, and then when it started getting dark, I went home, and my other school is right near my apartment, so I kind of passed it to see if people were there and to see if people were okay, and then each night we stayed in a different school. So Friday night we stayed at one, Saturday night we stayed not in a school but in kind of a kids' play centre. It was a very modern building, it was very, very good, and we could hardly feel the aftershocks in there. It was very nice. And then the Sunday we stayed in a different school. The last school we stayed in twice, but we stayed in different buildings. The first night we stayed in the sports hall, the second night we stayed in one of the classrooms. So Tuesday we left Sendai, and Tuesday night we stayed in Tokyo. So that was 4 schools, 4 places. Yeah. And then once we were travelling, we were staying in hotels and hostels. My students are high school. I think it's the same as your system. So my students were 15 to 18 years old. I had quite a lot of food before the earthquake, pastas and noodles and stuff, but the fresh things, the day-to-day foods, milk, drinks, bread, they were virtually impossible to buy. You couldn't buy milk anywhere. People were buying the drinks very quickly because they didn't know when the water supply would come back. They didn't know if it'd be safe when it did, but we had enough to keep ourselves alive. And staying in the evacuation centres, the sports halls of the schools, they were giving away food, but just enough for like a basic breakfast and a basic dinner. So starvation wasn't a problem, but I do plan to write a book. It's finding the time. I was struggling to find time to write other things I wanted to write before this, and now my holiday's over and I'm back to work. And it's quite busy because we started late, but yeah, we're still trying to do the same amount of work. For example, I've only just finished marking all my students' introductions. That's taken me about a month. And next week the midterm exams start. So I have to write the exam paper and then I'm going to have to mark them all. So I'm going to be busy right up until the summer holiday. But yes, I would like to find time to write this up because it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, hopefully. And I definitely experienced and felt some things that I've never felt before, so I kind of want to record it and talk about it. And I think it'll be interesting to other people. I presume our sports halls are about the same size as your school sports halls, and they were full. So I don't know how many people that is, and literally full. When you walked in the building, you were having to tiptoe between people. There wasn't a spare bit of floor. We kind of had to tell. Time kind of moves slower. But it went on a very long time, and everyone was very surprised. And it was very strong and just seemed to keep building up. There's always kind of a point where it kind of stops. You can kind of expect it to slow down or stop, but that earthquake didn't. It just kept going and changed the way in which it was shaking. But I would imagine it was at least a minute, probably 2, maybe even 3, but it's hard to tell. The tsunami didn't affect me. I heard some warnings about it before it happened, and I was a little concerned because my house is right by the river and it's on a lower part of ground, so if the river were to swell, then I would probably have my building affected by it, even though I'm on the 2nd floor. The centre of the city wasn't affected at all. I've been out to see some of the damage, and the closest part affected by the tsunami is probably 3 miles away from the city centre. There's like a motorway, a freeway, whatever you call them, like the ring road around the city. On the inside of this ring road, the city is normal, but just the other side of the ring road, it's complete devastation. It's like a line. There's just a complete mess. There's no houses, it's just bits of rubble. And where they've started cleaning up, there's big piles, but it's just like a wasteland. At the time, my Japanese was quite good. It's got a bit worse recently, but yeah, I still had lots of problems knowing what to do. I kind of learned places to get information in English, or people I could speak to, but in the beginning I had no idea what was happening. And when I got home, I was trying to find websites and radio broadcasts and things I could listen to, but I didn't really know information. I just knew from my friends I should go to an evacuation centre or somewhere else safe. And then they would have newspapers brought around. There were notices and bulletins, but I couldn't read any of them, so I suppose more than other people I was more concerned about my own personal safety, because it was just something to keep me occupied, whereas other people were reading about the disasters more, and they were looking for family and loved ones. But my friend, now my girlfriend, who I was with at the time, she speaks much better Japanese than me. She's Chinese, but she speaks Japanese better than me. So I was able to get a lot of information through her as well. So yes, definitely a problem, and the government should do more to help communication with foreigners. No. Strange as it might seem, I know there's lots of disasters and people dying and whatever, and it was definitely very difficult, but it's not the worst experience of my life at all. Like I said, I was able to stay calm during the event, and afterwards we just dealt with the situation. But I think, like anybody, there have been times in my life where I've just not known what to do and been completely upset and confused and in pain, and yeah, so they would be the worst. Of course I was concerned about everyone, but I managed to get in touch with most people almost straight away, and I knew they were fine, but I was concerned about their ongoing problems. Like us, we were trying to get food, we were worried about radiation. Everyone seemed to be fine, everyone muddled on, and I was quite confident if I could cope with it, then I'm sure all my friends could as well. I wasn't really worried about contacting them for my own sake. I was concerned about, I knew like my family would be worried about me, so I wanted to get in touch just to keep them calm. Not that I wish I had done differently, but I kind of wondered what might have happened in different situations. For example, not long ago I used to live in a town called Shiogama, and I would travel to Sendai to work. And then I moved to Sendai, and I'm very close to my school now. I wondered what would happen if I still lived in Shiogama, because Shiogama was affected by the tsunami. However, my apartment was at the top of a hill, and it was quite far inland. So I haven't seen it, but I know it's okay because my friends who were a bit closer to the sea, they're okay. So I see no reason why my place wouldn't have been. But I wonder what might have happened because I wouldn't have been able to go home that day. I would still be in the same school, but when it came to leaving school, I wouldn't know what to do. None of the trains were working, so I wouldn't have been able to get home. I wouldn't have really wanted to go home. I would have gone straight to an evacuation centre, I think. And I wonder what would have happened if I had decided to stay at home, maybe? If I hadn't gone to an evacuation centre and just stayed in my house, I would have been fine, but I would have been alone and probably more scared. And I might have ended up staying in Sendai all the time. And I wonder what might have happened if I'd been with different people. When I first went to the evacuation centre, I met up with a girl who was a language exchange. She's Chinese, and we were both practicing Japanese. And I met up with her because I knew she was alone at the time of the earthquake, and I thought it's better we spend the time together than just be alone and scared. And that worked out because now she's my girlfriend. But I wonder what would have happened if I'd have met other people. If I'd found a way to my American friends, what would have happened then? If I had been with another girl, would we have ended up together? I don't know. So I wonder about what would have happened, but I don't wish it had happened differently. I'm just glad everybody's okay and everything worked out. Well, I know I can cope with a lot more now. Things just kept happening. We had the earthquake, and when we thought that was okay, there were aftershocks, and then there was the tsunami, and then more aftershocks, and then trying to find food, and then radiation worries, and then traveling, and then did I have a job, and then there was always some other problem cropping up, and I coped with this while I was exhausted, while I had little sleep. There's the mailman. While I was eating less. I'm a lot thinner, not a lot, but I'm thinner now than I was before the earthquake. But I guess I'm a bit concerned about my health now. I want to eat properly and get strong again. I feel more relaxed and connected with people in Japan, but I'm less trusting of the government and the news because they're useless. They go out of their way to cover up any lies or mistakes they've made, and they would take that action knowing that it would kill or endanger hundreds and thousands of people, which I just can't understand. Thank you very much. Goodbye.